trainers, and welcome to episode 6 of Soundproof, a competitive Pokemon podcast that is this week, as always, brought to you by Brendan Lewis and Jake Muller, or better known on the internet as Mr. BDog46 and Major Bowman, respectively. And honestly, it's a small miracle that we were able to find the time to bring you this episode because we've both been completely consumed by Pokemon Masters since its release.
I've spent way too many hours rerolling for Karen to not play this game extensively. So I will tell you that if I ever have free time, I'm probably playing Masters to take advantage of all that time I burned on this dumb game.
Well, at least at this point, you've only burned hours and not money.
That's true. I haven't spent any money, asterisk, because I know I will eventually.
Yes. Yeah,
but I've held strong so far, and I'm trying to see how long I can make it.
It's like you're saving up your self-bestowed brownie points until you have enough to spend money on the game.
It's like, oh, I was good today. I'll add another $1 or $2 to my imaginary Masters fund.
You've been strong for a couple days.
Yeah.
Why don't you go ahead and get some gems?
I made lunch today. I didn't spend that money, so I can funnel it into
Exactly.
a mobile game that I'll never get
tuna
any
sandwich
fulfillment out of.
Anyway, we're going to avoid continuing to talk about that for as long as Pokemon Masters stays out of the VGC format. But if it ever does make its way in there, or we get a cool invitational at Worlds, we are going to speak about it. We're going to.
What if they did a Masters Invitational next year instead of Pogo?
We're going to speak about it. Anyway, if you want to talk to us about that on Twitter or some other forums, we'd be happy to do that. But for now, this will remain a podcast that is dedicated to the Ultra Series of the VGC 2019 format. We've got a couple more months of that, and we are kind of forging forward into our post-Worlds meta, which we were really excited about heading into, as we discussed on episode 5. So we have kind of our first set of event results that are not necessarily trickling in. There were a pretty good amount of events that took place this past weekend, but we only managed to get teams for a handful of them, thanks to the diligence of the retweet button of Zach Carlson, and whoever managed to, submit some sort of a screenshot or team list to him. So shout out to all of you guys who are able to, give us teams that we can talk about. So we'll jump into that as well as the ladder in just a minute. And then finally, at the end of our episode, we are coming back to you with our regular guest episode, and we will be joined by Blake Hopper later this episode to have a little bit more of a discussion about post-Worlds metas as a whole. And briefly before we go on, we did kind of select him because we were looking at kind of, the list of past post-World meta regional winners and people that have had success in post-Worlds metas. And Blake is a good friend of Jake's. And one of the
let's not go that far.
Okay, well, we can have that conversation.
Acquaintances geographically.
Anyway, he has a successful run of success. Good God, get me off. Get me off, Mr. Bones Wild Ride. Anyway, and is kind of most known for, in post-Worlds meta, at least that Scarf Rotom team, which is kind of like a fresher take on some of those Kangaskhan teams that were running around at the time. But anyway, before we go into results and then into the Blake segment, we are going to continue with our Dash number Pokemon roster build out type thing here.
Is this really what we're calling it?
Yes, that's its name. Don't ask me to repeat it because I forgot already. But anyway, we're on Dash 06 this week, and I think we have a pretty cool and diverse roster of Pokemon. Not that they're not always going to be like that, but there's some cool ones here. Of course, number 006 should be identifiable to any Pokemon fan, is of course Charizard.
He's a pretty fun mascot for the game. He's fun to use with either of his Mega Forms. They're both pretty fun Pokemon. I enjoy Charizard. He's a cool guy.
Charizard. Yeah, and he's kind of one of the few, I would say, mascots for the game that isn't a mouse. The Pokemon likes Clefairy and Eevee and Pikachu and all those cute little things that are endearing, but Charizard kind of appeals to the more edgy Pokemon fans as far as a mascot. And Charizard just recently was able to get itself relatively recently into competitive relevance after being bad since it was released. Basically, it wasn't even good in it's not even good in Gen 1 OU. It's not useful
not
there,
even close.
But it finally got 2 Mega Forms, one of which is better than the other, of course, and it was able to finally we're gonna ignore that. Is finally able to kind of get its moment in the sun. Moment in the sun. Moment in the sun.
Move on.
Jacob's moment in the sun.
No. Go. Forward. Next.
Number 106 is another Gen 1 Pokemon, is Hitmonlee. Kind of an interesting designed Pokemon, and one of the interesting things I actually found out recently, and this is one of those things that I feel like a lot of people knew, and I'm pretty sure I was shamed for finding this out this recently. It was kind of like how I recently found out that like Articuno and Zapdos and Moltres have like the Spanish numbers in their name.
Brendan.
Anyway, Hitmonlee
Brendan.
and Hitmonchan are named for Bruce Lee and Jackie Chan.
Oh.
Oh, so you're
Okay.
just finding that out too?
No, I knew
Oh,
that.
okay, well at
I
least
knew
it's not just me. You can join in my
Okay, but did you
shame.
know that? Did you know that Dinos, Wylus, and Hydreigon have the German words for 1, 2, and 3 in their names?
I don't even know what the German words for 1, 2, and 3
Eins,
are.
zwei,
So,
drei.
oh, I had no idea.
I just yeah.
I honestly had no idea. And to be
I
fair,
had to end up on top there. I couldn't let you just pummel me into the ground with that one. I
When
actually
I-
did not know the Jackie Chan and Bruce
when
Lee
I
thing,
first
though.
started
That's really
playing
cool.
Gen 1, I didn't know Spanish. So,
I'm fluent.
are you really?
No.
Oh, okay. Wow, I didn't even know that. Okay. Anyway, 206 is our first and only Gen 2 Pokemon of the week, and I think usually we'll only have one Gen 2 Pokemon because there are, what, like 101 of them?
I think there's like 100 exactly that
Or
got added. Yeah,
102.
maybe 101, something like that.
Anyway, we'll almost always only have one. I think maybe 51. No, because Mew's gonna. Anyway, I did some math. Anyway, 206 is Dunsparce, which is kind of an interesting Pokemon in the sense that it's very unique, but also kind of bad. Like, it doesn't really have the
Yeah.
stats. It was one of those Pokemon, kind of like Farfetch'd, that's been begging for an evolution for years and has never got one.
I always, whenever I was playing through Gen 2 games like Gold and Silver, I would always go catch one in Dark Cave. It had like a really low spawn rate.
Yeah,
But I would
remember
always
doing
make sure
that,
I
yeah.
caught one just for funsies, and I would carry it around for a while.
Oh my god, me
And
too. It's
then-
like a mascot.
Yeah, I would just do nothing with it, but it would just be sitting there. And
It's like
having
one
a
of
good
one of those things that you like throw out so you can use a revive on one of your other Pokemon.
time. Yeah, exactly. It's
Poor
fodder.
Dunsparce. And it's like one of the Serene Grace Pokemon too, which is kind of interesting.
Oh yeah.
It gets all the
Yeah.
flinching moves, and
Yeah.
I remember like its competitive set. I think for a while it had one of those like joke write-ups on Smogon.
Yeah,
like
it
Love
does.
Disc, but it like coils so that you don't miss your rock slides, and then you just flinch everything.
Right.
Anyway,
There are
three-
some really funny ones on Smogon.
the
Like
Love Disc
is
one
one
is
of
the
them.
one I always think about.
Yeah. Unknown has a pretty funny one too.
I think Watchog does as well.
Oh, maybe.
We're gonna change the name of this to Watchog Cast.
No.
And just
You
talk about
okay? You can't
Watchog.
just blast Watchog in the last episode
Watchog
and call it
sucks.
the reason for Dexit, and then rename it to Watchog
I
Cast. That's
didn't
not how this
call it
works.
the. I mean, I
You
just
can't just flip.
it's
You
just
know,
like-
I mean, you basically did.
when we started this podcast, if you had told me I'd be talking about Watchog 2 weeks in a row, I wouldn't have believed you. That's the
Well,
point
here
I'm
we
trying to
are.
make. Anyway, 306, the first and only Gen 3 Pokemon of the week is... Wait, is Bidoof Gen 3?
No, it's 4.
That's what I thought. Is Aggron, which is like a pretty cool Pokemon. I think it has like literally one instance of competitive relevance in VGC, and it's one of the Pokemon quite the opposite of Charizard that didn't really get anything out of its Mega.
Yeah, I think Ashton used it at Worlds in 2014,
Mm-hmm.
or either Worlds or like some other large
Yeah,
tournament.
some
that-
major event, right?
Yeah, it's a cool Pokemon though. I usually like to pick one up in like Gen 3 playthroughs just because it's like really fat and evolves kind of late, but it's worth it once you get there because it's really strong too.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, kind of a cool Pokemon. It's funny because I feel like the Mega like almost detracted from it by just taking away its
yeah.
like stab rock moves.
Right.
Anyway, number 406 is Bidoof, which obviously no competitive relevance. It's kind of cute. Its shiny was recently released in Go.
Yeah, it's been out for like a year or so, but it is
Well,
the only Pokemon that I have hatched a shiny version of. I've hatched 2 of them, but nothing else. Oh, that's actually a lie. I have a shiny Shinx. I hatched a shiny Shinx.
oh, you lied,
So,
Jake.
I know. I did lie.
I think my recent
and I feel
it was
dirty
like
about it.
a recently released shiny when I stopped playing, so that's probably why my
Well, yeah,
bias
when
is
did you stop playing?
probably a year ago.
Yeah, something like that. I know
Yeah.
I got it in January, so
Yeah, that sounds about right.
yeah.
Anyway, 506 is Lillipup, which is a cute Pokemon.
Yeah.
I feel like it's one of those Pokemon where, like, I like to picture board meetings, Jake, where they're like, okay, we're designing this Pokemon. It needs to be a dog, and it needs to be really cute. And they're like,
I mean,
okay,
like, if you're going for cute dog,
let's
I guess
design
Yorkie
cute
is
dog.
a decent design.
And I just feel like it's not like it's like they tried a little too hard and sort of missed the mark a little bit.
Right.
It's like, okay, here's this dog, and like, what if it just had a lot of hair on its face? Okay.
I mean, it's just a Yorkie for the most part.
Yeah, that needs a trim.
Yes, badly.
Yeah.
Most of them do, though.
Anyway, 606 is Beheum, and Jake, you'd like to make a public service announcement as it pertains to our discussion about LGM last week?
Yeah, so, sometimes people that are perfect make small, tiny mistakes. And that happens to be what happened last week. So I said that LGM and Beheum learn Steel Wing because it's TM51 in Gen 5, and that's not correct. Ally Switch is TM51 in Gen 5, and they were one of the first Pokemon to get Ally Switch from that TM. There were like 2 or 3 that could learn it. But in Gen 6, they removed Ally Switch as a TM, and TM51 became Steel Wing. And so then they learned Steel Wing from a Gen 6 TM51, and people theorized that they left it at 51, or they left it compatible with 51 because of Area 51 and aliens. And
Okay, so it's like the same idea.
Yeah, I was just like
Just a technicality.
I was half wrong.
The Area 51 thing still stands. That's the interesting piece about the factoid.
You have to wonder if they made Ally Switch TM51 on purpose for that reason. Because
were they probably the signature users of Ally Switch originally?
I'm pretty sure it was them and Gardevoir
yeah.
and Coffagrigus. I think those are the 3, maybe 1 or 2 more.
Interesting. I am not up on my Gen 5 knowledge, so I honestly wouldn't have known.
I remember Coffagrigus because in 2015 when Zach and I both cut Missouri with like pretty much the same team, he had to face Ally Switch Coffagrigus.
Oh my god, that's terrifying for Metagross.
Yeah. No, it was not fun.
Yeah.
He beat it, but I think he just like
did he hex it out?
Closed his eyes and clicked buttons and happened to win.
Anyway, 706 is Goodra, which is probably the worst competitively of all the pseudo legendaries, but was
sadly
seen a little bit. It's like a strong rain counter and stuff like that.
It had a place in like
right.
2014 and 2017.
Right. It showed up on like a few teams. I had this local that used to bring Goodra to everything. He would do this thing where he would like he did it with like Sekium's team in 2017, the one that he took to EUIC, where he just like swapped out Gastrodon for Goodra and like brought that to every tournament of the season.
I do know Goodra won the Anaheim Open because I would have played him in top 4 if I didn't have
that's
to leave.
right. Yeah.
And he did beat Alberto in the final, so I guess I did something.
Yeah, it has a result. And finally, 806 is Blacephalon, one of the more recently introduced Ultra Beasts. And one thing about Blacephalon is if it had like 3 points more speed, it would be good.
Yeah. Yeah, I routinely forget Blacephalon exists, and so I don't really have a whole lot to say about it.
Yeah, it was kind of close. It's like a cool design, I think. And even competitively, it's kind of neat. It just like it's slower and can be knocked out by knockoff Kartana. Like it's a fire type that can't check Kartana.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's going to do it for this segment, and of course in our next episode we will continue on as we go through basically the entire Pokedex indefinitely, with number 7 next week. So look forward to that if you like a little bit of a break from competitive content. But if you do like a little bit of a break from competitive content, maybe this podcast is not for you. But
this podcast is for everyone.
Sure it is.
Don't you dare turn this podcast off.
We're an all-inclusive
I'm watching
podcast. Anyway, we're going to run through the ladder this week. We have collected 20 teams as people start to test out stuff in the post-Worlds meta, and you are going to see a bunch of teams that look either extremely familiar or at least a little bit familiar to some of the things that showed up at Worlds as people start to kind of take these teams and put a spin on them and make them their own. And there are kind of some interesting Pokemon and interesting kind of theories that people approached to their team building this week. But anyway, we'll jump right into it. And at 2 on the ladder this week is Lunala, Rayquaza, Tapu Fini, Incineroar, Crobat, and Chansey.
I actually don't hate Chansey with Lunala, because one of the worst things about Lunala is Lunala mirrors, but Chansey is like a hard wall to Lunala. Like, it's immune to Moongeist. It'll take... Okay, I guess Slayshock hits the weaker physical side, but still, it won't do a whole lot. And if you have, like, 2 switch-ins to opposing Moongeist or MMM or whatever, as this guy does with Incineroar and Chansey,
you get to
that makes playing
it.
Lunala mirrors a lot easier.
And Chansey is also kind of like any Veltal check If it's
I
running,
mean, yeah,
if
if
it's
you
not
like
Z,
toxic soft boiled.
well, if it's not Z Eveltal, like it's foul play is not going to do any damage to you.
No, 0. Yeah.
Yeah, so you can beat it with just seismic toss probably.
Right.
And I mean, and soft boiled in the same sense that Umbreon could, I guess. Chansey is basically Umbreon, is what I'm saying. They're the same Pokemon.
They serve similar roles.
No, they're the same. They're the same Pokemon, Jake.
Oh, okay.
Pokemon. Anyway,
Sure.
at number 3 on the ladder, I believe this is actually the team that Ashton won a midseason with over the weekend. Is Groudon, Yveltal, Gengar, Tapu Koko, Incineroar, Landorus, Therian, and as I recall, it has a pretty strong Perish mode.
Yeah, I mean, anything with like Gengar, Incineroar, Landorus at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you have like Gengar, Koko, Incin, Landorus, so you have Gengar in 3 pivot mons.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a strong Perish mode. And then, like, obviously, Groudon and Yveltal are still Groudon and Yveltal.
Yeah,
so.
I actually kind of like that team. I've been like theorying Groudon, Yveltal pretty hard. Please don't counter team me at Atlantic City. But like this is like something like a 6 that I might have stumbled upon, like or put in my builder at some point. It's like pretty standard for Groudon, Yveltal, in my opinion. At number 4, Lunala Kyogre makes its first and maybe only appearance. I don't know. There's another one. Alongside Tapu Koko, Tapu Lele, Lucario, and Ribombee. Ribombee is an interesting Pokemon that people have theoried a lot and has never really had a real finish. It does like it does like Tailwind and like can't be faked out, and Pollen Puff is kind of cool. Like it does all these things, but it just like still just like dies.
Yeah, I mean, it's another one of those, like...
And it's a third
It's
fairy
similar to
on that
Tornadus,
team.
where it's like a Tailwind skill swap.
Yeah.
Be annoying mon.
You do what you
Like,
can.
Yeah.
Wait, does
it kind
skill
of makes
swap?
sense on this team because... Yeah, it gets skill swap.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. That's interesting. Skill swap Shield Dust was something I theoried in 2016 with Venomoth, and then put it down when I found out that you couldn't take a fake... Like, if you had Kyogre Venomoth on the field, right, you can't take a fake out with Kyogre and then skill swap Shield Dust and not flinch.
That makes sense.
Yeah, the turner. Like, it makes sense, but I was what if the game was just broken and this because it wouldn't shock me if it worked like that.
Right. I would save your Venomoth talk for about 7 or 8 teams down the line, though.
Ooh, another moth. At number 5 on the ladder is Necrozma Dawnwings, NDW. Groudon, Salamence, Tapu Lele, Stakataka, and Liepard.
This is just Tommy's Size Spam team with a Liepard instead of Smeargle, and I would personally consider this a direct downgrade.
It's like if you took Umbreon and Smeargle and smashed them together into one Pokemon.
I don't know if Liepard is anything like Umbreon other than the fact that it is a dark type.
They're both dark type, and
That is what I said.
They both learned foul play.
They both have 4 legs.
And they snarl. They both have tails. At number
true.
10 on the ladder is the first Rayogre of the week that features Tapu Koko, Incineroar, Kartana, and Nihilego. I'm pretty sure that's just the PokeAlex team, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, so we know what that does. I think that's actually on the ladder this week, like 1 or 2 times, 3 times maybe, if I remember correctly.
That's quite possible.
But anyway, at 11 on the ladder is the first Groudon Xerneas that features Metagross, Gengar, Incineroar, and Crobat. So people finally maybe starting to try some different things here on Groudon Xerneas teams. This could be double mega. It could be like Z Ghost or Z Poison Gengar. Like you could do some cool things.
I guess
with
it
that
could
there.
be, yeah.
Yeah.
I assumed double mega at first, but I hadn't really considered that option.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Gengar
just
Crobat
seems
is
like-
kind of like just like you throw them at Xerneas.
Right. I mean, yeah, this is like Groudon Xerneas, but with like 3 hard Xerneas checks, and so probably not losing that mirror anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean it's like not really. I don't know. I guess it's kind of a weird mirror, but you don't lose to Xerneas by itself. Like you use to the
Right.
Groudon in that mirror more than anything.
Absolutely,
Anyway,
yeah.
At 12 on the ladder is another Groudon Xerneas that is featuring Salamence, Tapu Koko, Incineroar, and Shedinja, otherwise known as standard Groudon Xerneas right now. I
Pretty much.
hate that.
Yeah, this is the 6 that Ken
Yeah.
top cut worlds with. And
Yeah.
It's like very similar to Melvin's if you change one Pokemon too. So
Yeah, just without the soak.
yeah.
At 14 on the ladder, another Lunala Kyogre, which shows up on the ladder far more than it shows up in live events.
Yeah.
That features Salamence, Tapu Fini, Incineroar, and Stakataka. And I hope that this person was watching the World's Finals and has some Yveltal techs on their team.
Yeah.
Please
I feel
listen
like-
to Jake and Brendan.
We already told you we were right. I mean, I think like Salamence, Feeney, Incineroar, Sagateka just goes with pretty much any restricted pair that doesn't have a Rayquaza on it.
Yeah.
So like, you can't go wrong at that point.
Yeah, I think it seems fine.
Yeah.
At 15 on the ladder is the long-awaited for the last 2 to 3 minutes Venomoth team that Jake alluded to that has Rayquaza, Kyogre, Metacham, Celesteela, Mimikyu, and Venomoth.
There's just a lot going
like,
on here.
okay, sure.
Yeah. The Venomoth, like we were saying, it's just another, like, it has Tailwind, it has Skill Swap. I mean, you could, like, Sleep Powder if you want. You could have Sludge Bomb for Zern. I don't really know what else it's doing, but
It's like worse
It's there.
Tornadus. Just like
Yeah.
worse Tornadus.
yeah, no, I agree.
Anyways, at 17 on the ladder is another Groudon Xerneas that features Salamence, Tapu Fini, Incineroar, and Kartana. And I'm pretty sure this is like kind of a standard composition too. Kartana got teched on like around Worlds to this
Mhm.
sort of composition.
Yeah.
At 19 on the
19.
ladder is Xerneas, Kyogre, Incineroar, Tornadus, Amoonguss, Kartana. Literally just James Beck's team.
Yep, that's it.
Literally just James Beck's team. There it is.
He
Strong
released his
team.
team report this last week, so it probably is literally just his pace.
Yeah, that's cool content. Cool content.
Yeah.
At number 20 is Kyogre, Yveltal, Mawile. I guess there were 2 Tapus in this slot in the replays, Jake.
Yeah,
Fini and Lele.
there was some Feeney and some Lele in the same slot.
And then Kartana and Gothitelle to round it out. So, Gothmaw, cool pairing in a restricted format.
Meh.
Maybe not. Maybe not so much.
Yeah,
Maybe
I mean,
not so much.
I feel like Mawile and Goth both struggle to hold up against restricted, like in
Restricteds,
any
yeah.
sort of capacity.
They
So a
Mawile
little bit of
just
a
got-
risk.
Mawile like folds to boosted Xerneas.
It folds to like anything.
It takes absolutely nothing switching in as a non-mega.
Yeah.
It just dies. At 22 on the ladder this week, Rayquaza, Kyogre, Incineroar, Tornadus, Ferrothorn, Bisharp. So you're like, oh, it's the Beck team. Oh, it's not the Beck team.
Yeah, I mean, this is like the double Curse Steel type team. Ferrothorn and Bisharp both have like bad reputations as, oh, why are you using this Pokemon? And
Mhm.
this guy just said, hey, down with that stereotype. I'm just gonna throw them both on here and see what
Yeah.
works.
Maybe they're both. It's bad to have one of them on your team, but to
True.
have both of them.
2 negatives does equal a positive.
In this case, that guy can only hope. At 23 on the ladder is, I believe this is Meek and Rattle's team.
Yeah, it is.
Yveltal, Kyogre, Metagross, Tapu Koko, Incineroar, Amoonguss. So a team, I've actually been meaning to try that. I just think Yveltal Groudon is stronger than Yveltal Kyogre. I don't really have a good reason for thinking that. I just
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I like her team. Top 8 with Worlds is no small feat, so
Yeah, I
certainly
would like to
something worth
try it.
having.
At 24 on the ladder, another Kyogre featuring Tapu Fini, Incineroar, Ferrothorn, and Togedemaru. This is similar to the team that Jeremy Odena won to win the boss. Damn it, I did it. The DC Open, but it has a Ferrothorn over a Bronzong, which feels like a direct downgrade.
Yeah, I think at this point we've had enough anti-Ferrothorn rhetoric in this podcast that
Okay, that's good. We
Our,
can just move on then.
our
That's fine.
opinions are pretty clear.
It's just implied at this time.
Right.
At 25 on the ladder is the first and only Groudon Rayquaza of the week that features Tapu Fini, Incineroar, Celesteela, and Zapdos. And Zapdos, one of those Pokemon kind of like Gothitelle and Mawile that is kind of nice in theory, but just like takes a
Mhm.
lot more damage from restricteds that you wanted to.
Yeah, Zapdos kind of makes its money on being able to take hits and like set Tailwind and Roost and all that stuff, but it's really hard for it to do that in restricted metas just because things are
Right.
doing way more damage.
Yeah, you can't switch into like an Eruption or a Water Spout or anything
No.
like that, so
Yeah.
tough to do that, especially when you would like Zapdos to be a Groudon switch in because obviously it ignores P-Blades, but it will take a lot of damage from Eruption.
Mhm.
At 26 on the ladder is Gavin Michaels on his main running his Worlds team with Groudon, Lunala, Tapu Fini, Incineroar, Snorlax, and Jumpluff.
But the first thing I thought of when I saw this team is that meme of the guy like looking at the butterfly and saying, "Is this a whatever. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
I forget what the exact wording in the original is, but I'm picturing like Gavin like pointing at Jump Left and saying, "Is this an Evil Tom matchup?"
It sure is, Jake. If you get good sleep turns, it sure is. All you needed to do is be asleep so you can hit it with 4 attacks to knock it out.
Right.
I think at the very least it's like better than the previous version without the evil like the Finny stack attacker version. I think this is like at least better than that, but not as good as the version that won Worlds.
Yeah, probably not.
If that makes sense. Anyway, at 30 on the ladder this week, another Ryogre featuring Tapu Fini, Incineroar, Nihilego, and Kartana, which is similar to the PokeAlex team, but I think that had Coco over Fini.
Yeah, I think that's the only difference.
Okay. At 31 on the ladder is the only X-Ray on the ladder this week, which is kind of interesting because it had good results in a lot of the bigger, like the live post-Worlds events.
Mm-hmm.
There's a freaking one right below it. Anyway, this team is Tapu Fini, Incineroar, Kartana, and Crobat alongside X-Ray. And then at 32, rounding out our top 20 available teams for the week, is X-Ray with Tapu Koko, Incineroar, Amoonguss, and Landorus Therian, which is basically the Pato team, except it has Landorus instead of Nihilego and then Koko instead of Fini, but like same kind of idea.
Yeah, I know. I mean, they're both just kind
that's
of...
this is like the John Paul Lopez Buiza team.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, we got to 32 teams this time instead of like 50 the last couple of weeks. So I guess people are a little bit less scared to show off what they have after Worlds, which makes a little bit of sense. But
yeah,
kind of an interesting look. There hasn't really been a big change since Worlds yet, which kind of makes sense because there wasn't really a whole lot of things that did well at Worlds that we weren't really expecting to, other than maybe 1 or 2 teams, and everyone just kind of been riding the same teams until some of the regionals coming up in the next few months.
Yeah, so kind of like some interesting tech mons, but that could have just been, like people like, well, let's try this in this slot, or any number of either that, or maybe we're on the forefront of the meta here. We kind of like called Lunala Rayquaza, so that's cool. Not that we like called it, but we observed it. We definitely
saw it
observed
first.
We saw dibs. All credit. Anyway, so that's it for the ladder, and we're going to touch on some of the live results in the post-Worlds meta, which is kind of exciting. I feel like we've been like pitching our whole podcast on like, we're going to bring you guys results, and we haven't really had anything to do for the entirety of the summer because there weren't any live events.
I promise.
But guess what? Here they are.
Woo!
So we've got 5 events. 2 of them are regional level events with the Melbourne Open and the DC Open. We have an MSS and 2 PCs. So we'll start with the PC, go from the bottom to the top as far as CP goes. And the first event that we're going to talk about this week was the first PC in New York City, which is cool. It's actually like in Rockefeller Center, and it was run by Pedons, which is awesome. He's somebody who's been in the Day 2 race for the last couple of years and is taking a step back to do some tournament organizing, which is really neat. And as I recall, I don't remember what the exact numbers were, but it was like well attended, which is awesome.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Ricardo Guerra was able to run away with first place. He was using an X-Ray team, like Brendan just said. Actually had some pretty decent results this past weekend. But it was Xerneas, Rayquaza, Landorus T, Tapu Fini, Incineroar, and Amoonguss. So kind of just a different take on like the Pato style of X-Ray.
Yeah. And then second place was Chup Cross, who was running the PokeAlex team. So it's like a lot of just kind of like team recycle here, nothing yet to see. Angel Miranda in third place was running the team that I was told was built by Raghav and was run by Justin Burns and Alex Underhill at Worlds, which was the that's a Solgaleo, Rayquaza, Tapu Fini, Old Persian, Incineroar, and Snorlax. So like a cool team, and apparently is doing well in post-Worlds meta, so that's cool. At number 4 was the Worlds winning team. Of course, we don't really know how much weight to assign it because we don't know what techs are on there, but if it has the Z moves, it has my approval. If not, please put it away. But that is Groudon, Lunala, Salamence, Incineroar, Stakataka, and Tapu Fini. And then the last 4 people here were all in top 8. The first of which is Paul Chua, who is basically running Ken's exact team. That is the Groudon, Xerneas, Salamence, Tapu Koko, Incineroar, and Shedinja. Not really a whole lot to see there. And then this team is the one that I was thinking of that was kind of like standard Groudon Xerneas, with the twist being Kartana.
Right.
It's Groudon Xerneas, Salamence, Incineroar, Tapu Fini, and Kartana, and that was run by Case. And then the final two teams in top 8 are Colin Heyer, who was running what I'm told was Raiku's Worlds team, but he didn't attend. Is that what happened?
No, he was there, I thought.
Oh, he was there? Okay,
Yeah.
but Colin just took the team. Anyway, the
Right.
team looks fine on paper. It's Groudon Xerneas, Kangaskhan, Tapu Lele, Kartana, and Smeargle, but apparently it has some like wild techs.
Yeah, I've been hearing it was like min speed Tapu Lele with Z Psych Up, or not Psych Up, Z Ally Switch, and then Z Tailwind Kartana as well, and then
Right.
like Lovely Kiss Smeargle. So that's kind of a classic
Did
Ian
you say
team.
Dragon
He likes-
Pulse Groudon too?
I didn't, but I did hear that
I
as
think
well.
that I heard that it has that,
Yeah.
which makes sense. It's just like you run Eruption, Earth Power, and Pulse instead of
Right.
Blades, Punch, and Claw.
No, Ian likes teams that abuse sleep a lot, and so that's definitely a team I would expect from him. He likes putting stuff to sleep and clicking Geomancy. Like I added him as a friend on Pokemon Go like a week or two ago, and his username is Geomancy Clicker.
Okay, there you have it. And the final team in the top 8 of this event was Xerneas, Lunala, Lucario, Tapu Lele, and then Crobat and Smeargle. So a little bit
Smeargle.
different than the one that won Senior NAIC, but kind of the same idea.
Yeah, I think it's
Just
just
like the same core
Incineroar
four, I would
being
say,
dropped
yeah.
for Crobat, if I do
Right.
believe.
All right, so there's
maybe
our
not, I
first
don't know.
event there, and we will move on here to the London/Orpington PC.
Mm-hmm.
As I pull that up on my screen.
Yeah, the first place
Alright.
team was a combination of Xerneas and Necrozma Duskmane, presumably Ultra because it is accompanied by Tapu Lele, Incineroar, Lopunny, and Crobat. So that kind of
Yeah.
screams Ultra to me.
That's like wicked hyper offense. I'd be scared to sit
Yeah.
down and play that.
Oh, me too.
Super scared. Second place here was a Xerneas Lunala team as people start to
Rayquaza.
experiment with different Xerneas Rayquaza Lunala team as people start to experiment with like different takes on this archetype that was kind of like popularized by Aaron Traylor and Wolf at Worlds this year. This one has Tapu Fini, Incineroar, Togekiss, and Stakataka. So 2 fairy types definitely trying to cover the Veltal matchup, I think, there.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. It's a cool looking team.
Yeah.
I don't really see any glaring holes there.
I'm fine with that. I think it looks neat. Yeah. Kangtorn, third place with Amoonguss as the final member. So there you go. Fourth place was Jamie Boy, who was running. It looks like a little change on his Worlds team. So it does have the Necrozma Duskmane, Xerneas, Tapu Koko, Salazzle, Salamence, which were all the same. But he swapped out his Breloom for a Bisharp.
I'm actually surprised. I thought he was talking afterwards, and he was saying that
he was
Breloom
talking about how
like an
good it
MVP.
was, right?
Yeah.
Huh.
So possibly
forgot to ask
switching
him
it out.
about
I
that.
imagine it's probably low kick, because I think
it
that
has to be,
Breloom
right?
was his entire Stakataka matchup. But
Yeah, and he kind of needs some Incineroar help there too.
oh, that too. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
maybe that was it. Maybe it's better against Incineroar, so that's why he brought it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Who knows what
Who
Jamie's
knows?
thinking?
He doesn't think like anybody else.
No.
And then the top 8 teams here, from 5th through 8th. The first being Kyogre, Yveltal, Tapu Lele, Incineroar, Gengar, and Stakataka.
I think that's
a
the
team
6
that's
that
been
James
around
won
since-
Daytona with.
Yeah, I was
right?
just gonna say
Yeah.
that it's been around since Moon Series, I think.
That was in like March or April.
Yeah, a long time ago. Was that Sun Series or Moon Series?
It was Ultra,
Oh.
because it was Mega Gengar.
Oh, because there's a Gengar, yeah.
Yeah.
Duh. The sixth place team is Groudon Yveltal with Tapu Koko, Incineroar, Metagross, and Mimikyu, which is the team that took top 4 at Worlds.
Yep.
7th is the Shedinja, Koko, Groudon, Xerneas. We've talked about that a little bit. And the 8th place team was X-Ray with Tapu Fini, Incineroar, Serena, and Murkrow.
Yeah, those are Pokemon.
Those sure be some Pokemon.
Serena and Murkrow both have like a niche in that they're annoying to face. Like Murkrow is like Priority Tailwind and Quash and Taunt
Quash
and
is annoying,
Foul Play
yeah.
and all that stuff. So, like, I get it. I can't imagine it's super effective, but you know, it's there.
Yeah, it's just like kind of niche support for a strong offensive restricted pairing. So like
Mhm.
I mean like I wouldn't use it, but it makes sense.
Right.
All right, so we'll move on to our only mid-season showdown of the week here, which was one that finished with top 4 teams in Mexico. So the first team was, it looks like a take on that Ragov team that was Rayquaza, Solgaleo, Incineroar, Tapu Fini, Snorlax, and then they use an Amoonguss instead of a Alolan Persian there, which I don't hate.
Yeah, I don't either. I think it makes sense.
That's fine. Yeah.
It makes that Trick Room mode a little bit more scary.
Yeah, if you have Smeargle and Snorlax on the field under Trick Room, I mean, like, you're doing pretty well.
Right.
The second team, Kyogre Rayquaza with Celesteela, Whimsicott, Tapu Fini, and Incineroar.
It's kind of like a combination of the various Rayogre Tekmons. Like Celesteela was on one version, Whimsicott was on a different one.
Right.
Just kind of smashing them all together.
Kind of idea, that sort of like thing a lot. I'm pretty sure Joppy, he was 17th at Worlds with Celesteela and Mimikyu, right?
That sounds right, yeah.
We were kind of like trashing that when he saw it on the ladder. We were like, oh, good job, you smashed together both. And then he took it to like top cut at Worlds. So,
right.
Yeah. And then the final 2 teams are the same of Groudon, Xerneas, Salamence, Incineroar, Shedinja, and Tapu Koko. I really wish that would go away.
I know. I don't like seeing
that.
It.
I mean, like, as an Yveltal user, like, it doesn't scare me as much as it scares, like, probably some other users of certain archetypes. But, like, I mean, like, I'd be fine without Shedinja existing. All right, and then we do have our last 2 events here for the week were the larger events, those being DC Open and the Melbourne Open. And I know the Melbourne Open had a lot of Groudon Xerneas, which
There's
was kind
6 in top 8, yeah.
Which was kind of interesting considering that it like wasn't really around at Worlds at all. So I wonder if it just made up like such a large portion of, you know, the player base that it just had to show up. I don't know.
A lot of them are like recognizable teams that have been around for a while too. Like Alfredo Chen Gonzalez won with the Parish version, so he had Gengar Xerneas, Groudon Xerneas, Gengar Landorus, and Incineroar Fini, which we've seen a bunch this year.
I think that was his first Masters event too, which is awesome.
Oh yeah, I think it was. Yeah, good
Didn't
for him.
he win Senior Worlds last year? Is that who that? Or
I think so.
He won an IC or something.
He was a very good senior. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Chris Can came in second with Groudon Xerneas, Salamence, Incineroar, Tapu Fini, Mimikyu, which I want to say was his Worlds team. I know he had the Mimikyu.
He was on stream, wasn't he, at some point?
Yeah, he definitely had Mimikyu at Worlds, and I think this is what he ran with it.
Yeah, it looks familiar.
Right.
And then Chosen Future at third with Groudon, Xerneas, Kangtorn, Incineroar, and Smeargle. So again, pretty similar to a lot of the stuff that we've seen. Sam Pentella's Zelda with Groudon, Xerneas, Salamence, Incineroar, Tapu Koko, and Shedinja. So there you go. We've talked about that like going on 10 times already this episode.
Now we've got the
fifth
James
place
Beck
team
team
is the James Beck team, and then the 6th place team,
Mogar.
kind of like the most noteworthy one, is Mogar, who will forever be using Coco Chew.
Yep.
And it is alongside Ray Ogre, Scissor, Mega Scissor, and Incineroar. I'm pretty sure he's used that at some point.
That looks, the Scissor seems familiar.
The Scissor, I've seen him have that. At 7th
is Melvin B cutting everything. Why are you surprised at this point?
Cut an event. He will never again not cut.
And using what else but the same 6 with the Fini, Shedinja, Groudon, Xerneas, Incineroar.
Right. Yep.
There are like 2 certain things in life, and neither of them are death and taxes. It's that Melvin will use that team and he will cut with it.
Yep. I wish death and taxes weren't certain.
I know, right?
What a world. Anyway, the final team is an 8th place team. It looks like a Japanese player was there, which is kind of cool. Which is Groudon, Xerneas, Kangtorn, Incineroar, and Amoonguss. So really, this is just kind of like a tour of what Groudon Xerneas has looked like at various points during the Ultra metagame.
That's kind of funny. Yeah, I didn't think about it like
that. So there you have it. A lot of that showed up at this event, and it's kind of an interesting trend because I don't think I would have expected that at all. Like, a lot of the teams that did well at Worlds do really well against these kinds of compositions. So,
right.
It's kind of surprising to see it show up all over the place.
Yeah, I agree.
And our last event of the week was the DC Open, which is, the biggest event that's happened in post-Worlds and will likely be the biggest event
At least until Sword and Shield, yeah. But
yeah, probably until what is it? LAIC is the first big event in Sword and Shield. I don't know. Maybe some of the
I would
Dallas
bet DC Open will be bigger than LAIC.
Dallas will probably be big.
Yeah, usually
Dallas will probably push it. Yeah, I would think Dallas would push it. But anyway, we have top 16 teams here. I think it was a top 16 cut, which is like unheard of in VGC regionals at this point. But hopefully that will change as we go to Ultra. Anyway, the first place team piloted by Jeremy Odena was Ray Ogre, Incineroar, Tapu Fini, Bronzong, and Togedemaru.
Yeah, I mean, just another Ray Ogre team. I like the Fini. Fini Ogre isn't usually seen just because they do kind of clash a little bit, but the Togedemaru helps to alleviate. There's the word. Found it.
You found it.
Yeah, alleviate the Coco matchup there, which Ray Ogre and Fini all have pretty poor Coco matchups, so Togedemaru is a pretty good inclusion there, I'd say.
Right, and I think I was talking to Jeremy, and we actually talked about his team and his ult on the ladder, I think in the pre-Worlds episode.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it was 2 episodes before that, but anyway, this exact 6 was on the ladder at some point. He was like, "Hey, thanks for the shout out," and I was like, "We didn't shout you out," and he was like, "Yeah,
you did." Yeah, that's funny.
The number 2 team is actually another local this is kind of his first big result, which is kind of cool to see, and a team that is different than a lot of the other things that we've seen, being Yveltal Kyogre with Gengar, Tapu Lele, Ferrothorn, and Togedemaru.
That's interesting. Gengar Lele I think makes a lot of sense because you can kind of trap things that might not want to be facing Lele. A lot of Lele's issues have to do with its terrain being reset or just things being able to switch in on it, but if you force positive matchups for it, it's actually a really strong Pokemon, so I respect Gengar Lele a lot.
Right, and I think Gengar Togedemaru kind of forces you can trap Tapu Koko, so you can prevent Volt Switch and get it on the field with Gengar Togedemaru, because otherwise that's a Pokemon that will just destroy Kyogre.
Yeah, I guess
and
Koko
even
is
kind of messes with Lele too.
Koko is super worthless against Gengar Togedemaru.
Right, so if you can get it, so it takes a little bit of fancy footwork probably, but the number 3 team as we go through top 4 here was Rayquaza Xerneas with Incineroar, Tapu Koko, Suicune, and Amoonguss. So this is pretty standard. It looks almost exactly like the 4th place team,
right?
Which was the same 6 except for Tapu Fini. And Jake, just one personal anecdote here. The guy that was in 3rd place there was actually my only win at the Boston Open. I beat him in round 1, or at the DC Open. God, I
Same
did it again.
thing.
I beat him in round 1 and then proceeded to get hacked out in my next 3 rounds to drop. And then he didn't lose again until top 4.
That's funny. Yeah,
so it made me feel a little bit better about myself after having kind of a tough day at the office.
Right. This weekend makes sense, I think. It gives you Tailwind instead of just Icy Wind.
Yeah, and makes it so you don't have to double down on fairies too.
Yeah.
Stuff like Gengar can give that sort of stuff a lot of trouble, but if you have Snarl, Suicune, you cover it a little bit better than Tapu Fini would. So, I played really well in that set too.
Okay, we get it.
The 5th place team at the DC Open was Rayquaza Kyogre with Incineroar, Tapu Koko, Nihilego, and Celesteela. So a lot of the same customers there, maybe in a different order though.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think at this point it's hard to go wrong with Ray Ogre, Koko, Incin, and then 2 of 6 or 7 months in those last 2 slots.
Just pick your Xerneas matchup mons.
Exactly, yeah. These are 2 Xerneas matchup mons, which Ray Ogre sometimes needs, so I think it works. It makes sense.
The 6th place team, probably definitely the most noteworthy team. Well, I mean, most unique team of top 8 from a Japanese player that did feature non-primal Groudon with a choice band.
Yeah,
Lunala,
it's choice band Groudon.
Yeah, Lunala, Gengar, and then Tapu Lele, Pheromosa, and Whimsicott.
Gengar Whimsicott is terrifying enough. You throw a Pheromosa on there, and then you learn that the Groudon isn't even primal, and then you're just confused. I do not enjoy playing against this kind of team because I do not enjoy playing against balls to the wall hyper offense. I always get overwhelmed, and it's terrifying.
It's funny because we were talking about this the other day, Jake, and his primal Groudon matchup is non-primal Groudon.
Yeah,
your blades isn't super effective. Joke's on you. The 7th place team is the like quote unquote standard Groudon Xerneas with Salamence, Incineroar, Tapu Lele, and Amoonguss. And I say quote unquote because I feel like the standard version is Tapu Koko and
I know. There's like
and
two
the
different
bug at this
forks of
point,
the standard version at this point, and this is one of them.
Oh god.
It was
And then
Mora
the
Hazen though. I believe this is her first regional cut, so
Oh, good for her. I didn't know
yeah.
that. The 8th place team is a cool team, I think.
I liked
with,
it, yeah.
Kyogre, Xerneas, Metagross, Incineroar, Tornadus, and Amoonguss. I think that's kind of neat.
Yeah,
and
no, I
then,
agree. It's like a different take on Xerneas.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
That was another one that I saw when I was looking through this. And I was like, oh, I'm going to try that.
Mm-hmm.
I'll try
Instead
that
of
at
running
some
through
point.
like the rest of the top 16 teams.
You want to just do some highlights?
Yeah, so like
Well,
top
there are a lot
8
of highlights.
Well, yeah, top 8 other than the one non-primal Groudon team with Pheromosa, Whimsicott, pretty normal. Like there's not
Very
a lot of
normal.
crazy stuff there.
Yeah.
But if you look at 9 through 16, it just looks like someone threw some dice and picked some random Pokemon to like pull off the
Yeah.
Cerebi page or something. Because there's so many random things here. Like ninth
Right.
place is like it's Zernala, Lucario, Lele, and Incineroar, which makes sense. And then Hydreigon's the last Pokemon. If you go down to 11, there's a Terracotta. If you go to 12, there's a Mega Altaria. And there's even like there's another Abombi team at 15th. There's a Houndoom at 16. So there's a lot of like wild
Houndoom
stuff
is
that made it
Cellcore.
its way into cut at DC and lost in the first round.
Yeah, that's. I mean, that's it's. There you go. I guess I don't I
Right.
don't even really know what to say. It's just like some of this stuff, and it's entirely possible. And I'd have to go back and look at exactly who was a world's competitor, but a lot of some of these players at the very least were like people that didn't make it through to day 2 and are
Right.
playing in DC Open and are like. What the hell? I'll
Yeah,
use
why
what I've
not?
got sitting in my battle box, and guess what? It's a Houndoom that I want a PC with, or something like that.
Right.
So
And
you
like
never know.
honestly, I can't rag on them too much because when I played in Anaheim,
You're just like playing with house money. Oh yeah, you used.
well, yeah, I use like no in Anaheim I use like Dragonite, Snorlax, Murkrow, and some other Xurkitree.
Same kind of idea.
Yeah, like
here,
it
where
was
you just
some
kinda, like,
weird stuff, but I got top 4 with it. So like,
take something you're gonna have fun.
yeah,
playing
exactly.
with
That
and
was my
just kinda,
my
see what
entire point. And I
happens.
think that's a good point. Like some of these people certainly played in day 1 and didn't
But-
make it through, and then just decided to have a good time at the DC Open.
I
and-
just hate that I went 1-3 in the tournament. That
And
all these
Houndoom made
Pokemon
top
cut. And like I got haxed out really bad. Listen, before we go on,
Oh
and
my
I
God.
hate being these people. Like, I'm not a person that complains about hacks, but good
But what are you
God,
about to do,
did I get
Brendan? What are you
haxed
about
out
to
at
do?
the Open? Good God, did I get haxed out? Oh my goodness. Okay,
Glad we
anyway,
asked.
I'm over it. I just really okay. So there I was. It was round 2.
My God,
So that's it for the events that we have data on so far, and of course we'll continue to bring those to you every week. We'd like to make it, at least for the most part, a pretty core facets of our episode. And I
Mhm.
mentioned it earlier, but this is like the first time we've actually been able to like really,
Yeah.
do the kind of rundown of results. So that's fun. You can look forward to that a little bit more as we have more events. And we're not going to go through every small event, but you better believe that if somebody is running like, Fletchinder at a Lada MPC, that I'm going to talk about it.
This is what we live for here. We can like talk about all these standard teams that we want, and then like I don't know, Baneri pops up, and we're like, oh my God, Baneri is in top cut. We have to talk about that.
There's CP for Baneri.
Right.
Anyway, that's it for us. So we are going to take a little bit of a break, and then we will come back in just a few seconds, your time, a little bit longer, our time, with Blake Hopper as we discuss Post-Worlds meta as our topic, not necessarily just as it pertains to this year, though. So I feel like we'll have some pretty good
Yeah.
discussion with him. I'm excited about it.
Me too.
All right, so don't go anywhere. Please listen to our interlude music and then look forward to our interview with Blake Hopper. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the second half of episode 6 of Soundproof. Rest assured, we were playing Pokemon Masters during the break. My name is Brendan Lewis. His name is Jake Muller, and we are now joined by Blake Hopper for the second portion of our podcast. Blake, welcome.
Hello, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Of course.
For those of you who don't know, lucky, but
Wow.
I will fill you in on some of the things we know Blake for. He is the winner of the 2015 Houston Regionals, which did rather fall after the World Championships that year, which is why we brought him on, as we mentioned before. But he has also made top 16 at the World Championships 3 times in a row, from 2014 to 2016, including making it through the LCQ in that 2014 year, the last year we had the LCQ. Additionally, I believe he won the 2013 Nugget Bridge Invitational. Is that right?
That is correct, yes.
Yeah, so an online queen as well. So we're very happy to have him.
Yeah. I'm glad to discuss everything that you guys have planned.
Awesome. So what we do have planned, and I like to, kind of continue to tout what we do with our guests here, is we always try to bring our guests on for something that they can kind of personally relate to as far as content here. And of course, as we've been talking about, we are kind of into our new and strange and exciting post-Worlds meta here in the 2019 Ultra Series format. But Blake, going all the way back into the earlier year, well, maybe not the earlier years of your career, but some previous years, did have a lot of success in a certain post-Worlds meta. So we could talk a little bit about that team specifically. I honestly, I thought I had it written down, but I don't have the. Was it Houston in 2015? Oh, it's right here. Yes, am I correct in that?
It was Houston, yeah.
Yeah.
The
Oh,
regional?
yeah. Sorry, it
Yeah.
was Houston.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
I
yeah.
apologize. Yeah, it was a pretty basic Kangaskhan team. If you see a Kangaskhan, it's probably correct.
So that was kind of
Um,
sort of that was immediately after Chalk had basically taken 7 out of 8 spots at the World Championship, correct?
Right. Yeah, that was right after we saw like the domination of Japan and Chalk at Worlds, and everyone was like losing their minds. Basically, it's like, wow, we are definitely playing this game incorrectly, and everyone had to basically completely rethink how they were going to go into the regionals after we had seen that complete demonstration of like basically excellence at Worlds that year. I think it'd be a disservice to call it anything else. So we definitely saw a lot of Kangaskhan's that year after Worlds. I believe at Houston, it was Kangaskhan was like 4 or 5 of the megas in cut, which actually was a little bit lower than I had anticipated going into the event, just because of how ridiculously strong Kangaskhan was at Worlds. We definitely saw a little bit of creativity coming out outside of Kangaskhan at Houston.
Right. So in your specific scenario, you took Kangaskhan, but also put like a little bit of a spin on some of the stuff that was kind of going on at the time, because we saw at Worlds it was a lot of basic Chalk, but if memory serves, you were also using like the Volcarona variant of the team and ended up having a Scarf Rotom on there. So was that kind of like in response to the Worlds meta, or was that something that you kind of felt was strong, independently, or what factored into some of the decisions to take that sort of team call in a post meta or a post Worlds meta game?
It was a little bit of both, in response to Worlds, and a little bit of also sort of to counter and to be inspired from Worlds. I did notice that post Worlds, a lot of people, like before Houston wasn't the very first post Worlds tournament, and I noticed that a lot of post Worlds tournaments in 2015, we saw a lot of offensive water types. Like I believe Hibiki top 4 at a regional with some Mega Swampert Rain team.
Right.
We were seeing.
That's kind of when Azumarill started taking off.
Oh, is that
too.
what
Yeah.
that was? Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, I was about to say there was so much Azumarill. I believe Fort Wayne actually was the tournament where Caitlin Beach and Keegan Beljanski both got, I believe, top 4 and top 8 with just basically Chalk with an Azumarill over Cresselia.
Yeah, it was Caitlin and it was Keegan's brother both got top 4, and then I think John McMillan also cut, all with the same like Kang Azu team. So
Right.
certainly like that was definitely like a weird trend that picked up after Worlds. I think a lot of people just kind of like took Chalk and they were like, hey, Azumarill's a decent 5th, let's throw it on there, and then kind of adapted the team from there sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that a lot of the offensive water types we saw as a response to what happened at Worlds, because Chalk itself, it does have a lot of tools to sort of counteract basically anything that gets thrown at it, but waters are really easy, are really good at exploiting Chalk being in a disadvantaged state because they have the Heatran and they have the Landorus, which are both obviously weak to water. So also, in addition to like the Swampert side of things and the Azumarill side of things, they both are able to do really significant damage to everything that's not named Amoonguss on Chalk. So I kind of wanted to take from that in the form of Rotom, but use that to support Volcarona, because the Rotom itself was sort of weak itself to Kangaskhan and weak to Cresselia, where Volcarona could sort of set up in front of them and dish out some damage in response.
That makes sense. I didn't really consider them as a pair, but I really like that because, you know, like obviously Volcarona can bug buzz Crest for a lot of damage. Kang like does a lot to it, but a lot of times Kang is really scared of touching Volcarona because of Flame Body. So
exactly.
Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense. I really hadn't considered that before.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, you also ran Scarf Rotom at Worlds that year, right?
Yes, I did. Worlds was a bit unfortunate.
Yeah.
I did get top 16, but it was, my team was basically, and also I have to preface this with, I'm sorry to Toller, who basically helped me. Like, we used the exact same team, and we were so close to creating Chalk. Like we had the Kang, we had the Landorus, we had the Heatran, we had the Cress, but then we had Rotom Charizard instead of Thundurus and Amoonguss.
Yeah.
And had we had those two, it would have been a much better team. But yeah, I did use the Scarf Rotom there, and it was really fun. And it was one of those things where it was like so much fun that I just kind of I had to use it again, right? Especially because I thought it was pretty solid in the meta again.
So in the context of post Worlds in that year specifically, and I guess even in any post Worlds meta, what makes you think more about like building your own team as opposed to just like copy pasting Chalk and taking that into post Worlds events?
Yeah, well, I think that first of all, I always think it's best to build your own team, just because you can sort of tailor it to what's being used and what's good at the time. Especially for Worlds, I think a lot of people, since it's the end of the format, a lot of people are sort of burnt out, especially of like this entire format. They're like, okay, well, I have one more regional, but like, do I really want to build a team? I'll just take the winning team, like the Lunadon, whatever, slap it into the battle box. We're good. And so I think it's really important to look at what did well at Worlds, and you can like sort of take some inspiration from it. Like there were some really good texts this year, specifically in 2019, that came to light through Worlds and through the top 8 that are still, we're probably going to see so many of them at future regionals until the end of the Ultra Series. But I think it's important to sort of take the texts and use those to counter what did well at Worlds. That way you just have a better chance to counter the people who are sort of, I don't know, taking the easy route and taking a team.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. I like in a sense, you kind of said it right off the bat that it comes down to like generally like a personal belief that you should always have your own team as opposed to taking a team right off the bat. But I guess it also, as you said, it makes sense to also take ideas, but not necessarily just an entire pace. And those ideas we've talked a lot about on this podcast, especially some of like the Rayquaza texts that showed up in Top Cut, which were absolutely nuts, that we'll definitely see going into the post-Worlds meta here. So as far as prepping, like for a tournament, pre-Worlds and post-Worlds, obviously they're like two totally different caliber tournaments to show up to like Worlds as opposed to, you know, a local regional. But how does your prep from like being in Worlds mode as opposed to like regionals mode change?
Yeah, I think it's very different. Similar in some aspects, but overall pretty different. Going into Worlds, obviously you want to be able to throw your opponent off left and right. You want to be able to have the meta call. You want to be able to like have a team that's so good against the meta that some matchups seem almost unwinnable for your opponent, while minimizing your own bad matchups. Of course, I'm explaining like a god team that almost doesn't exist, but still, you want as many good matchups as possible. And if you don't have a good matchup, you want to be able to surprise people. So I think there's a lot of creativity that goes into building a Worlds team, whereas for regionals, I think it's important to realize, especially post-Worlds, that a lot of people are going to be taking a lot of the diverse teams from Worlds, and if they're not taking a team post-Worlds, if they're just kind of, not really caring about the regional, they might just be using some team that they've been wanting to use all year, but it just hasn't panned out.
Right, we saw that in DC Open.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So you're going to see like a lot more diversity, I think, at post-Worlds regionals most of the time, just because you have people who are taking the Worlds teams, people who are taking against the Worlds teams, people who are just doing whatever the hell they want. So I think for regionals, you just kind of want that solid team that maybe might not necessarily even be that flashy like some Worlds teams were. Like you might not have an Umbreon. That's okay. But as long as you're getting the W's, like that's what really matters in the end.
Yeah. I also think like going into regionals pre and post Worlds, like after Worlds, you generally don't have any regionals between something like Nationals and Worlds, at least here in the U.S.
Right.
So like if you're going to a regional after Worlds, that means there have been two like very large international level tournaments, and specifically Worlds, where a lot of people are going to be taking teams from, like you just said, Blake. But if you're going to a regional before Worlds, all you really have is the past couple of regionals, maybe like a different international championship that happened a month or two ago. But I think really good examples were like in 2016 and 2015. If you're going to post-Worlds regionals in 2015, you better have a chalk matchup. And if you're going to a post-Worlds regional in 2016, you better have a Wolf team matchup. And it's things like that you have to consider that may not have been such a big deal before Worlds, but now there's a couple different variables that you have to cover, which means that maybe you can sacrifice some other things to cover those a little bit better, but it kind of adds a little bit more into the mix of like team building and what you have to cover and what you can try to ignore a little bit.
Right. So I wonder in that sense, whether or not the going into Worlds or the Worlds meta is more or less stable than the post-Worlds meta.
Say that again. I apologize.
Like what Jake is kind of describing how basically some of the teams that show up at Worlds inform a lot of your team decisions, and whether or not that stabilizes the post-Worlds meta or adds more instability to it, because the way that Jake described it was you sacrifice matchups in some places to try and over prepare for chalk, but does that stabilize or destabilize the meta?
Yeah. I really think it honestly just depends on the year.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, in 2015, I actually think that the meta post-Worlds was really, really stable in 2015. Just because there was just that one team that everyone's like, oh man, this is good. We have to be able to beat this. And there were probably 3 to 5 teams that sort of sprouted from that. But in terms of something like 2019, man, honestly, good luck to the people going to regionals. I think these regionals are going to be wild.
Yeah,
there were so many ideas that came out of Worlds this year.
And it's funny because I would have expected the same thing, and then there were 6 out of 8 Xerneas Groudon in top cut of the Melbourne Open. So
yeah,
who knows what's going on right now?
I think it's a good point, though. I think that the events at Worlds that year have a big influence on what happens meta-wise. Some years, I think we talked about this on the last episode, Brenda, but some years the meta gets blown wide open. We had the Wolf team in 2016 that just kind of cracked what everyone had been using. But people tried to copy it, and some people had some success with it post-Worlds, but I also think that people started to realize, maybe a month or two after Worlds in 2016, that this was a really good team for that tournament, and obviously it performed well at Worlds, but maybe either I'm not the best pilot for it, or it was more of a tournament call as opposed to like a general meta call, because I really don't think I don't think a copy of his team had much success. Obviously, there were similar Rayogre teams that
he teched a
placed well,
Klefki onto his own.
Yeah.
He teched the Klefki onto his own team,
The
so clearly
keys.
it wasn't as well equipped for the post Worlds meta as it
Right.
was for the Worlds meta. I think that's
I
the
totally
only
forgot about that.
the literal only VGC success of Klefki.
Yeah, I mean, that just kind of goes to show, like, I do agree that Post Worlds 2015 felt really, I'm not going to say easy to play and build in, but it definitely, you knew what you were going to get.
Right.
There wasn't really a whole lot of wild stuff, just because Chalk was very good, and a lot of the kind of wilder things just immediately folded to Chalk, so they weren't really something you could confidently bring to a tournament. So you knew that you had to have these, like, stable teams with, like, well-meshed compositions that would be able to perform against Chalk and the similar teams of its caliber. And so I really liked Post Worlds 15 just because there wasn't really a whole lot of craziness, and there was a lot of, there weren't really a whole lot of auto-loss matchups one way or the other either. And so all the games I played Post Worlds 15 really felt interactive, and I just really enjoyed it.
Yeah, for sure. And I do think that is mostly because 2015 was just generally a pretty centralized meta,
Mm-hmm.
especially towards the end of it, obviously, with Chalk. But I think something like, whenever you go to these regionals, looking towards Worlds, again, like I said earlier about looking for techs, is pretty key. Like in 2014, we saw Sejun obviously winning with Gothitelle, Megagyarados, Pachirisu. But the Gothitelle, we sort of realized afterwards how potent Shadow Tag with Gothitelle was.
Right.
And then left and right, we saw Aaron starting this trend of Gothitelle plus Mawile.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And 2014 regionals were dominated by that combo. And then towards the end of it in Houston, we saw, I think the finals was Colin with, I think Colin had Gothitelle, Mawile, Rain, and he just beat Aaron in top 4 with almost the exact same team. And then Cedric actually had like a pretty interesting team to counter that. So like the Post Worlds format had already sort of evolved into the Gothitelle, Mawile, Rain format almost.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Yeah, and that was just sort of because like that Gothitelle tech that was at Worlds that people sort of woke it up to.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. I mean, I guess this is kind of like a larger discussion as far as like how you prepare for a metagame. But how like soon after Worlds do you have to start preparing one step further? So instead of like building a team to counter what did well at Worlds, do you build a team to counter to the counter to what did well at Worlds? That's a pretty good. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a really complicated process.
These are the things that keep me up at night.
I think it all starts on Pokemon Showdown, honestly.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah, you just plug in whatever you think looked cool at Worlds. Like maybe you thought Farium, Tapu Fini was really cool, and maybe that starts dominating all the regionals.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's the thing to counter. Or maybe Rayogre with bulky Swords Dance Rayquaza becomes the thing. It's just a matter of putting it into Showdown, testing it, see what does well on ladder. Maybe try and look at what's like top 10, top 20, top whatever teams are up there, and sort of try and counter to be productive or I can't even think of the word, proactive against those teams.
Right, proactive.
Yeah.
That's a good point. There's really not much like immediately following Worlds. Like this past weekend rather, was the first set of tournaments we had, and I'm not sure if you've seen those results, Blake, but they're really kind of like uninteresting. Like a lot of the teams that performed well, like there was an open in Melbourne, like Melbourne regionals, and Brendan hinted at it, but 6 of the top 8 were Xerneas Groudon, and they were like all teams that we've seen before for the most part. They were all different, but they were all like, oh yeah, I've seen something like that. Like some of them were just Worlds teams. Some of them were like the NAIC, like Parish Zerndon teams, and so like it was all one archetype, but it was all kind of different, but also like nothing really new. So I'm a little bit surprised we haven't seen like people branching out just yet, but that could just be like a Worlds burnout type thing where people didn't really want to put a whole lot of time into this tournament because Worlds was so recent and maybe just falling back on some other stuff.
Yeah. Oh, if you don't mind me asking, when did this tournament take place? I'm not familiar with it.
It was last weekend. Yeah.
This past weekend. Okay.
It was in Melbourne, Australia.
Yeah, I think that's kind of tough because that is like 2 weeks right after Worlds. So
right.
Yeah, it's very soon after.
Yeah, people may have thought that was the call. Like, who knows? But if it's that dominant, then maybe it's a good call going forward. It's those sort of tournaments that you just kind of have to keep an eye out for.
Yeah,
right. I thought that the most interesting thing about it, and Jake and I talked about this a little bit earlier, is that a lot of the teams that did well at Worlds do like really well against those Xerneas Groudon teams that did well at the Melbourne Open. So even if somebody like had been inclined to just copy paste their like a Worlds team, like the AmirAlexander team does really well against like the Coco Xerneas Groudon stuff. Like you could have done super well in a tournament field that ended up with 6 Xerneas Groudon in top cut. So it is kind of all over the place. I guess that's kind of where it comes back to like what level of preparation do you want to do for what showed up at Worlds? And in this case, it was no level of preparation for what showed up at Worlds.
It's very early in the season too. Some people haven't really like outlined their season goals or plans yet.
That's true. Yeah.
Like if you don't know for a fact that you're going to be like grinding out the entire season and traveling to a bunch of tournaments, maybe you just wanted to take it easy, see how it goes. That's kind of what I did in 2017. Like I played the Anaheim Open for fun, then went to Fort Wayne, and my mindset there was like, well, I'll just do something I enjoy again and see what happens. And then that's how I kind of planned the rest of my season from there. And so, I mean, I guess that could have been another symptom of just kind of how quickly the tournament happened right after the World Championships.
I think that's exactly why we saw Mega Altaria in top 16 of the DC Open. I think that exact mindset. So it's interesting. Like the I guess, to summarize, the post-Worlds metagame draws its wildness from a lot of different sources that can come down to something as simple as player fatigue.
Yeah.
It's a defining metagame factor, player fatigue. So, Blake, in the context only of 2019 Worlds, what are you, or post-Worlds, the metagame right now, the Ultra Series, I didn't say that well at all, but what are you like expecting to see in the post-Worlds metagame in 2019?
Well, as I believe I mentioned, the 2019 Worlds Championships, especially the top cut, had a good amount of variety.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of interesting teams to take from this. I did notice that there was a good amount of Kyogre. I believe it was 5 out of 8 of cut. I personally hope to see more of the Spain Rain team.
Spain Rain, I love that.
Yeah, I love the team.
I will never call it anything else.
I really like that team. I know that a lot of people were sleeping on Kartana throughout the year, or at least through Ultra. Obviously not through Sun and Moon. Oh, man.
Right.
But through Ultra, Kartana was relatively slept on. But it's kind of a cute little Techmon. They have a really strong 5 outside of Kartana, though. I really like the Nihilego Rayogre synergy.
We love Nihilego on this podcast.
We do.
You're in a good spot.
I feel so welcomed. Because I absolutely love that trio, and that team I hope we see more of, or at least some sort of building upon that.
I personally, I keep saying I love Zernogre, but I really do. And we did see it top 8 twice and scoot into top 4 once with James Beck. And it's something that popped up at the Open too. It got top 8 at the Open, and it's something that I still think has a lot of room to grow. Like there's really only been one and a half different Zernogre teams, because the James and Steven Mia teams are one mon different. So they're kind of functionally the same.
Yeah.
But I do think it has room to grow, and I think it's a very interesting archetype because it kind of takes classic Zerndon but plays it a little bit differently and flip some matchups for better or for worse. There are some matchups that are way better with Ogre and some that are just worse, and so it's a very different way it plays. But I personally, that's something I would look into using, as I've said for probably the 400th time on this podcast.
Yeah, we've talked about it quite a bit.
Yeah, I think every week at some point.
Yeah, I actually think Zern Ogre for Worlds was really interesting because we sort of saw an interesting shift starting at Madison, where a lot, like with the Palchua team,
Mm-hmm.
where a lot of Zerndon teams included a special Groudon. And
Yeah.
I believe that part of why Zerndon is so good is because you have that Dawn for the Zern matchup. And
Yeah.
if it's special, it sort of doesn't really fulfill that role as well. So I think Kyogre sort of is a really good replacement because you end up beating a lot more things because of it. Namely,
like
Groudon.
considering that like Groudon is a pretty good answer to Xerneas, if you have your Ogre instead of a Groudon next to Xerneas, that kind of not eliminates, but I like to think that makes the Groudon matchup way easier because instead of playing a mirror, you're playing what is conditionally like a very, very good matchup. Obviously, it requires the rain being up and not the sun, but like
It
it's
scares
just
them almost. Which
yeah,
is nice.
exactly.
Yeah.
Mhm.
The threat of it being in back is really helpful.
Right.
Yeah, I like that adaptation a lot.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense, and
it's
it's interesting that its development as an archetype like almost mirrors 2016 a little bit.
Yeah.
I guess you could argue that it's been around a little bit more just because Beck had like one of the best seasons of all time and was kind of like dragging it kicking and screaming through Ultra Series. But outside of James, because I feel like that's not necessarily a normal case for the development of an archetype, it just kind of like showed up for the first time at Worlds just like it did in 2016, and it seems likely to do pretty well in the post-Worlds metagame. Maybe it won't be as centralizing, but because it was centralizing immediately after Worlds in 2016. It was in like two of top 4 at Philadelphia and like this, that, and the other thing, all over the place. But historical parallels are always fun.
Yeah.
I think I'm like super interested, and I'm especially because Japan was like on the forefront of it at Worlds, but like the Necrozma Duskmane stuff, whether it be Ultra or not, feels like stuff that could go all over the place. Like if it's Ultra, it has a really nice matchup against the Kyogre stuff. If you keep it as a Necrozma Duskmane, it does really well against stuff like X-Ray. So that's like a super interesting Pokemon to me that doesn't seem like it's been developing anywhere else in the world except Japan. So if that shows up, I'd be really excited to see that too.
Except Japan and Jamie Boyd's apartment.
and Jamie Boyd's apartment.
No, that's like
that we can't call Jamie Boyd's apartment a metagame trend, Jake.
Fine, whatever. Jamie, I tried. Like I don't get Duskmane. Like obviously I'm not saying it's bad. I just like I don't personally No, like it's great. Obviously it did well at Worlds, but I don't personally like understand how to play it like at all. It's just it's a very confusing Pokemon to me because I feel like in my head if I'm using the Steel version I would like want to run Sunsteel Strike to have a Zern matchup, but then like you can't run the standard like Ultra Necrozma set because that wants to be special with Earth Power and Photon Geyser and like
you drop Protect, Jake.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah,
yes,
that's it. Okay. You solved it. We're good.
Thank you. That was it. That's all you needed. You run three attacks and Trick Room, no Protect.
Yeah. No, like it's a very interesting Pokemon because I feel like it can do a lot, but like it can't do everything at the same time.
Right.
And it can, or like it could try to spread itself out, but then you just kind of spread it way too thin, and it doesn't really do anything well. So it's like it's confusing to me. It's not like something that I fundamentally understand, but I can see why it might be getting like usage and success.
Right. I think that I was really happy to see that Necrozma Duskmane was doing well because it's actually something that I tried to use earlier in the format. Obviously, I did not use it correctly. I did not get second place at Worlds.
Because you didn't have an Umbreon next to it.
I also didn't go to any events. But I do think Duskmane Necrozma is very niche in the fact that it's really good. If you don't Ultra Burst, it's really good with a support move, like Trick Room.
Right.
Like earlier in the format, I was trying it with Calm Mind because I could set up on Xerneas.
Right.
Like to an extent, obviously, because it's still a Xerneas. Whenever I burst, I get bodied. But it's nice with Trick Room because you have overall better resistances.
Right.
Although I was a little confused with Hirofumi's team because he only really had the Groudon to support with Trick Room. Other than that. His team was relatively fast. Oh, yeah, good point. Yeah, there was the Umbreon.
Quintessential Trick Room Sweeper, yep.
Helping Hand Umbreon, let's go. So it was still really cool to see him utilize that Duskmane for Trick Room mostly. And I saw him going for it quite a lot, too, so that was really good to see.
Yeah, he's a super good player. I was like,
For sure.
I was trying to like call moves and stuff sitting in the stands, and he was just like 3 steps ahead of me. It's unbelievable. Sometimes you just watch somebody play and think about how bad you are.
That's what it felt like at 2015 Worlds. It was like, okay, maybe he goes for this, and he did something completely opposite and like basically won the game off. And I'm like, oh,
Well, that
Okay.
happens.
Yeah. Oh yeah. These Japanese players come out every once in a while and just kind of remind us, like, hey, this is how you're
Yeah,
supposed to play.
every couple
Right.
seasons they just like sort of take over. I think this was
It's
one
the
of them,
odd-numbered
too.
years, I'm telling you.
Is that what it is? It's like
Yeah.
the San Francisco Giants odd-numbered
yeah.
years. Yeah.
15, 17, and 19, huh?
Sports
Wow.
sports reference.
There's something to that.
So next
Yeah.
year they're going to disappear again, but 2021. Mark my
Look out.
words.
Look out, 2021, second year of Sword Shield.
For the
So-
Diamond and Pearl remakes, hopefully.
Oh,
Oh.
please.
I think every time somebody says that, they delay the release.
I take it back.
That's what
Great,
it is.
Blake. You just pushed it back
So
3 more
what's
years.
the other internet
Delete it in
meme?
post.
Oh, the next Half-Life, that's the other one. I think it's the same way.
No, Valve just can't count to 3. That's the meme there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's a new.
We're stuck
it's
on
a new
Portal
one.
It's like
too.
Half-Life, Team Fortress, and Portal all stuck at
Mhm.
2.
Oh,
Pour
I
one
didn't
out.
realize it. Yeah, that's right. Didn't even think of that. All right, so that's where we stand in the post-Worlds meta. Blake's gut reaction was Spain Reigns, so look out for that. Rayogre, definitely an ever-evolving meta type, especially if Raghav gets back into that, rejoins the Rayogre Discord after departing for Solgaleo for a couple tournaments. So cool archetype.
They'll allow him back.
Yeah. You have to be re-added. But anyway, that's going to wrap up the serious segment of the second portion of our podcast here. So, Blake, as we like to do when we have guests on, we've got kind of some fun stuff to do. We've got a game, some extra questions to ask towards the end. So this is going to be fun. We'll take a couple minutes to do some cool stuff. So we've been trying to add to kind of like a list of rotating games that we can sort of bring into episodes here. And we'd like to try a new one here today, which is a classic game I'm sure everybody's played before. It's called 20 Questions.
Okay.
But of course, we are going to narrow it down from, the true 20 questions is like you can literally pick anything in the world, and we'll try and at least keep it somewhat topical. All right, so I'll eliminate your first question by yes, it is Pokemon related, but it can be, a Pokemon, a player. I'll try and keep it not too far out of left field. I won't do like old venues or
Okay, thank
tournament
you, thank
Monona
tournament-
Terrace Convention Center.
tournament organizers.
Okay.
The
All right,
answer is
cool.
not Pokemon Online.
And just to be clear, I don't know what he's.
Oh
come
no,
up with
yes,
either.
this is.
So we're playing this
picked-
together, Blake.
This is picked.
Okay. Are we gonna like take turns or?
Sure. Yeah.
Sure, you
Okay.
can take turns,
Okay, Jake. Since you're the host, you go.
and
first.
I'll try and count correctly here.
Okay. Is it a person?
It is not a person.
Okay, is it a Pokemon?
It is a Pokemon.
Ooh.
Killed it.
Is it a Pokemon that has been historically good in a VGC format?
No.
Hmm.
Does it have a Mega Evolution?
Oh,
No.
that's a good question. Is it a fully evolved Pokemon?
No.
Oh man. Can it evolve?
Yes.
Is it the favorite Pokemon of someone in this call?
No. As far as I know. That's 7 questions, by the way.
Okay.
Okay. Is it a first stage?
Yes.
Okay.
Was it released before Gen 4? So like in 1, 2, or 3?
No.
Oh. Was it released in Gen 6 or 7?
No.
Oh.
Okay, so 4 or 5.
How many
That's
questions
10
is
questions. That's
Okay.
10.
That is
You're
10.
halfway.
Well, is
We
it
gotta
in
ask
Gen
good
4?
ones.
It is.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Remind me again. Is it stage 1? It is, right?
It is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Does that count as a
Hmm.
question?
No, we already asked that. Don't count that.
Okay, does it include one of the base elemental types? So like fire, water, electric, grass.
No.
Okay.
Oh. Oh gosh. Was it involved in like one of the main plot points of the story in Gen 4?
Not as far as I can remember.
Okay.
Man, these are getting tough now.
How many is that?
That's
13?
13.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so first stage. Is it a fossil?
No.
Oh, good question. Wow. How can we even like differentiate Pokemon at this point without getting like super specific?
That's the tough part of the game, Jake.
I know.
I
I'm
feel like we
asking
gotta
Blake,
go for,
not you.
I feel like we gotta go for like types or something, but
Yeah, but
it's too
it's like-
broad.
Right. Is it?
No.
No. Gosh, this is tough. Okay. Is it obtainable before the Elite Four?
I think so. I don't see why it wouldn't be.
Okay.
Huh.
Oh, I have a better question.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I already asked. I'll save it for the next one.
Okay, is it... Oh, man. Is it a bug?
No.
Is its final evolution a Pokemon that's generally been good in VGC?
No.
I
God,
feel like we asked that.
I asked
Oh,
if
no,
it itself was.
The itself, yeah. Oh,
So it's not Bronzor. I was thinking like that for a second.
I don't know, man. There's a lot of bad Gen 4 Pokemon.
Oh wait, I might know it.
You might?
I might know it. No, wait, I don't know it. Never mind.
I really thought you knew it.
No, like I thought I did too, but then I was thinking Snover, but then Blake asked if it was grass, and
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. That's... Oh, I feel like there's only a few things it could be.
right.
Like, I feel like it could either be a normal type or a flying type.
Yeah,
so,
so
like,
like Starly maybe.
Yeah, like Starly, Combee, Drifblim, or like one of the normal types like Baneri or like Bidoof or something.
True.
Okay, is it a flying type?
No.
You hate to see it. You really do.
So maybe it is like Bidoof, or what was the other one you said?
Baneri.
Baneri, yeah.
Or
We mentioned.
there's
How
also
many
the
questions
little-
is that?
That's 18.
There's also the cat.
The cat?
Perugly, the base form of Perugly.
Oh yeah. Is it a normal type?
No.
Oh god. Okay, Jake, what do we think it could be here?
Oh no.
There's a lot of options.
You
I
have
know.
one question left.
Oh god. Okay.
So I don't know if it typically works like this, but I'll allow one more question and then a guess.
Yeah, I think we both get a guess
okay.
at the very end, right?
Okay. Yeah,
Okay.
sure. We'll do
Yeah.
that.
Let's do that.
So you get one more question first.
Oh boy.
Do we think maybe it's like one of the babies?
Oh. Well, what babies were introduced in Gen 4?
Like Riolu, Mime Jr.
Oh, true.
I think Mime Jr.
Oh, it could be that, yeah.
Happiny? Bonsly?
Yeah.
I
No, it's
think
not
that-
happening because that's a normal type.
Oh, true. Also, Chingling.
Yeah.
It can't be Mantine.
God.
That's flying, I believe. Unless it's
Yeah,
pure
it
water.
is. No,
Okay.
Mantike is flying.
Okay.
Ask if it's a baby. That could be our last question.
Yeah, is it a baby?
Yes.
Oh,
Okay.
bless.
So,
you've got it down to a
gosh.
handful to choose
Yeah.
from, and
Like
you both get a guess,
6.
so you can at least narrow it down a little bit.
I don't think it's Mime Jr. because that's in our logo, and I don't think he would go that obvious.
You did ask if it was a favorite.
Well, it's not my favorite, but
Oh, okay.
Wow,
I just
poor
assumed.
Mime Jr.
it has soundproof. That's why it's in our logo, Blake.
Oh, that's cute. I love that.
Right? So does Snover. Okay, anyway, I'm going to guess Bonsly.
You're correct.
Yay, we did it!
I totally
Man,
would've
I
done
thought you guys were
Riolu, so
way
thank
off
you.
on questions 18 and 19, and then you brought it around to the babies in the 11th hour.
Yeah.
Well
Proud
done.
of us.
This
I'm
last
proud.
minute.
I always
that was
have
good.
felt like Bonsly is a very forgettable Pokemon, so that's like my trivia question Pokemon all the time as I go
It
to
really
Bonsly.
is.
Uh-huh.
It sadly is.
Yep.
It was.
Okay.
Brock had one in the anime, I think.
Yeah, he did.
Yep.
Yeah, that's about it.
I
It's its
remember
claim
it
to
most
fame.
from Smash because you can throw it and it does a lot of damage.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Okay, Blake, we've reached our very last question for you. And
Okay,
this is a very important one, so I need you to listen closely.
I'm listening.
I'm
My
going to
volume's
give
max.
you I'm going to give you 4 hypothetical events, and you
Okay.
need to rank them in order of likelihood.
Oh, okay.
Ready? Okay.
Interesting.
So, number 1, you admit that Sunny D is a good team.
4.
We're done. Okay. Okay, number 2. Number 2, you swear off listening to pop music.
Oh, that's also 4.
I know, right? These are all
This
going to be
is-
4.
This is just kind of mean, Jake.
I know. That's I mean, you know what I did to Justin in like
Targeted
episode 2.
bullying. That's
So number 3 is you admit that I'm better than you at VGC 2015. And number 4 is you release Bop to the Top episode 2.
Okay. You are evil, first of all.
This is true.
I, for
Second of
one,
all, I am-
hate Jake.
Thank you. I'm being hardcore called out here. Okay, let's see. And number 1, most likely, Bop to the Top episode 2. Still
Oh
never gonna
my
happen.
God, it's
but
coming
most
back.
likely.
You heard it here first, folks. The official announcement. We
I'm
just
gonna be in the
trapped you.
studio
That was the
tomorrow.
goal there. is to suck you in.
We're gonna put this soundbite all over the internet.
Oh my gosh, that's gonna be my advertising. It'll be perfect. Second most likely, honestly, would probably be admitting that Sunny D's a good team.
He just said it.
Third-
Sunny D's a good team. I'm gonna take that soundbite and just clip out you saying Sunny D's a good team. By the way,
This is gonna be full of sound bites. Third would probably be swearing off pop music,
oh, how dare
and
you!
so you know what's last.
I do.
Admitting that you're better than me in 2015.
This is like we like fight about this all the time. Like in our World Cup server, we keep going back and forth. Like, oh, when I'm playing 15 and you're playing whatever else, this is how it's gonna happen. Or blah, blah, blah.
There's only one slot.
I know.
So
It's funny
you
though
know.
because I'd like you had my number for the first like 6 or 7 months of that year, and then
Oh,
I
yeah.
finally started beating you at the marathon, and I got you like 2 or 3 times there.
Oh, the marathon was so fun.
It was so much fun. But I
Yeah.
think we're pretty even because like now when we play like 2015 sets, like when we want to play like old formats, we go pretty even most of the time.
Yeah, we're relatively even.
Yeah, it's so fun. I love playing 2015.
Oh yeah. I think there was one night where I ended up positive against you because I crit you or something. I was like,
I
okay,
don't know.
cool.
something like that.
We'll
When you were
take it.
here in February, I'm pretty sure we like split 15 and 16. We did 2 of each.
Oh yeah, that was fun. I do not miss 2016.
Oh no. All right, well now,
Oh,
Blake,
man.
I believe it is your turn to ask us a question.
Okay, I thought long and hard on this, y'all.
Oh, did you?
Oh my gosh, she's prepared. I'm so excited.
Don't worry, it's not that crazy of a question. What is your favorite kind of cereal?
Oh,
I know,
Crunch
asking the
Berries.
hard-hitting questions.
I know. Mine's Captain Crunch Berries. We always used to,
okay.
whenever we went on like family vacations that we had, where we had stayed in like a condo or something with a kitchen, we would always
Mhm.
get that and eat it for breakfast. So it's like
Ooh.
it tastes good and it's also like a fun memory. So that's mine.
Oh, very nice.
I always get bullied when I get asked this question and answer it truthfully. I really think Special K is like delicious, and I know it's like marketed as the like lose 10 pounds in it's 8 weeks, and like honestly, it's just such a delicious cereal. I
I mean,
like,
whatever
really
floats your
enjoy
boat,
it.
you know. Daily
Okay.
dose of
I-
fiber and a good cereal.
Exactly.
I absolutely love Special K red berries. Okay,
Yes,
I'm,
it's
I'm
so-
right
I-
there with you.
It's up there. I like the plain one better, but red berries is also really good. Yeah, I agree.
I respect it. And in case y'all were curious, mine is by far Honey Bunches of Oats with
Good one.
almonds.
Yeah, up there
Fair.
for me
Good
as well.
choice.
Yep,
So
Honey Bunches
good.
of Oats. Just like regular Honey Bunches of Oats, or do you like one specifically?
You know, I'll have them all.
Have them all.
I don't care. Do they all come with almonds? I actually don't know.
No, I think only there's like specific almond one.
Okay, then I like the almond ones the most, for sure.
I like the almond ones the least. Can't do almonds.
It's okay, I forgive you.
I think there's a chocolate one too. That one's kind of weird.
Oh, there
That
probably
sounds.
is. I haven't
Yeah, I
tried
don't know
it.
how that would work.
And kind of a
They
weird
just
one.
put chocolate in it. Screw it.
You can't just put chocolate into everything. I'm sorry, world. It doesn't work like that.
Willy Wonka would not approve of that statement.
He's turning over in his grave. All right, well, we have reached the final segment of the podcast, and that is, of course, our music segment. If you couldn't pick up on it by the fact that I called Blake out on listening to pop music, he is indeed possibly even more of a music whore than I am, and so I was very happy to have Blake on just for this segment especially, because now we get to nerd out about music. And I think before any of us say our personal music recommendations for the week, I think we all just want to take a minute to obsess over Lover.
Yeah,
I know that all three of us love it.
I was gonna make this mine this week, and then Jake was like, "No, we're just gonna talk about it anyway."
Death by a Thousand Cuts is a bop, and you will not convince me otherwise. That might be my favorite from the album.
It's pretty good.
It's Cruel Summer for me by far.
Also a good one.
Maybe not by far, but I think that's the best song on the album.
Mine is Still Lover.
Mm-hmm.
So good.
It's a classic.
It's there for me as well.
Yeah.
Probably her best album in a while, in my opinion.
Since
good.
1989, I think.
I think it's even better than 1989.
I think it competes for it, yeah.
Yeah. All right, well...
It's pretty good.
My other music recommendation, I've been listening to a lot of Lizzo lately, and I know she's not really a new craze, but sometimes I go back to people I listened to a while ago, and Lizzo is this week's obsession, so I've been playing her on repeat. Mostly because one of my friends at school and I have been talking about her a lot, and so we just keep saying, "Oh, Lizzo, let's blah, blah, blah." And so whenever I'm like bored and I need like a bit of energy to like get some work done, I'll put Lizzo on and start bopping around in my chair while I read a paper or something.
Let's go.
I always listen to it when it comes on the radio.
Well, yeah. You didn't pick it though, so you're not a true fan.
You don't know. You went first. You don't know that that's not what I was gonna pick.
Oh, okay, Brendan, is yours Lizzo too?
It's not Lizzo. I figured I would go in a more poppy direction in honor of Blake this week.
Thank you.
So there's this. I don't know how well known this duo is, but you've probably heard of them. It's Loot. Have you heard of Loot? Loote.
I don't think I have.
So they're like a pop duo that's like pretty well known, and they do a lot of like official remixes of top 40 songs and stuff like that. But it's like poppy and catchy. And my favorite song by them is from an EP called Single, which is kind of cool, and it's called Wish I Never Met You. So I like them a lot. Definitely
that
recommend
sounds
it.
fun.
I'll listen to that later. I've never heard of them.
Yeah.
Very nice. I always love getting hearing an artist recommended, and I have no idea who they are.
Yeah.
Because then I listen to them, and it's like, oh, I really like this person.
You're like on the forefront.
Oh yeah, this is great. Well, my recommendation, which I think a lot of people have been catching on to her lately, but
it's Lizzo.
I have a guess.
It is also Lizzo. I know a lot of the English, Americans don't really know about her, but she was just on the VMAs. It's Rosalia.
Oh, not my guess.
Absolutely love her.
Huh.
Yeah, she only sings in Spanish, but you don't have to understand Spanish to like her music.
Mm-hmm.
She is very poppy. All of her newer stuff is just bop after bop after bop.
Nice.
So good. Could not recommend more.
Cool.
Yeah.
Definitely check that out. And
sure.
also can brush up on Spanish. That's never a bad thing.
There you go.
I am fluent after all.
See,
when you said that to me earlier, I was like, "Are you really?" I didn't doubt it. I was just surprised at first.
In the first half, I forget the context entirely, but I said very matter of fact, "Oh yeah, I'm fluent in Spanish," and Brendan goes, "Oh really?" And I just say, "No."
Yeah, my initial reaction was like, "Oh wow, Jake, that's really cool." It wasn't like you're lying.
Yeah.
Wow. A mí también. No. Okay.
Yo también. Anyway, that's going to
Exposed.
wrap up the second half of our segment here today.
Oh,
A big thank you for having Blake on to discuss
Yay.
Post-Worlds metas, and we got to talk about a lot more than just post-worlds meta, but it was a lot of interesting stuff as far as like team building. So keep that in mind as you go forth into, as I've said a bunch of times, this cruel and unforgiving post-worlds world. It could be crazy, or it could be very stable with, Chalk Azumarill. So keep your wits about you. Make sure you get your team building in, and prepare for those upcoming regionals. And get yourselves onto the snowball. Now's the time.
Oh, gosh.
If you want those travel stipends, you got to do it now. Go.
It begins.
Go cut a regional.
Blake, is there any final words you'd like to say? Anywhere we can find you online?
Yes. Follow me on Twitter. That's the only social media I use, at BopperVGC. My title on there is Sock and Bopper. That's who knows me.
That's such a good name. That's a very
It's
good
so great,
name.
right?
Yeah.
The rebrand of the century became what we needed.
All right, well, thank you again
then-
for coming on, Blake. We really appreciate your wisdom in these trying times. It's very
Yeah, thanks
difficult
for
to
having me.
survive in this.
Can you just
was
tell
fun.
us real quick what your YouTube channel is so we can watch for Bop to the Top?
It should still be Bopper VGC, I believe.
All right, Bopper VGC, Bop to the Top, episode 2.
subscribe, everyone?
I have an
theaters
Overwatch
near
video
you.
on there too. So
Oh, is
check
that the
that
Wrecking
out.
Ball one?
Yeah, it only has like
Yes.
30 views. Please help me out.
All right,
Yeah,
so
check
we're
it
going to
out.
cut to the briefest of breaks. Thanks again to Blake. We'll be back in just a sec to wrap up episode 6 of Soundproof.
Adios.
And welcome back, and thank you for listening to episode 6 of Soundproof. Assuming you listened to the whole thing, if you just tuned into the end, no thanks to you. Just please go back and listen to the whole episode.
Yeah, for some reason you opened this podcast and skipped to the last 2 minutes.
My
Why?
favorite part
What
of
are you
Soundproof
doing?
is the end.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
it's been a joy. We've gotten to number 6, and it's still something I really enjoy doing, and hopefully you
Definitely.
too, Brendan. But yeah, no signs of slowing down from us anytime soon, unless there's some catastrophe that Brendan seemed to be hinting at earlier. But I don't know. I'll watch my back.
Shh. But yeah, we've got some cool ideas. We've been kicking them around. Hopefully we're going to be continuing to bring you stuff that's kind of new and content that might not have been done before. That's kind of our goal, is to make this unique and interesting to listen to. Yeah, but, we don't want it to be... these tend to be pretty long, right? So the least we could do is give you guys some good stuff to listen to. If you have a 2-hour commute, you're welcome. If you have to split it up, that's fine too. But we're going to keep them coming in 2 weeks. So we'll continue to cover all of the results that come out from the Post-Worlds metagame. And hopefully we've done an okay job of preparing you for going forth into your Post-Worlds metagame as you seek your placement of top snowballs, start to get those top 4 PC, CP in your back pocket, and just pile them up as we go forward, as we continue to get ready for Sword and Shield. But this is a fun metagame, so don't look past it. It's like how they say, you don't want to grow up too fast. Enjoy it while you're young.
No, yeah, we were talking this afternoon, and there are some ideas that we came up with that I think are really cool, and I'm really excited to see how we can make them flesh out. And so, if you've stuck with us through all 6 episodes, thanks a lot for keeping along with us. If you're just joining us now, thanks for joining.
Welcome.
We hope you stick around. Everyone that has favorited or retweeted or said they liked it, or even just listened to a minute or 2 of the podcast on any platform, we're very thankful for you, because that's kind of why we're doing it, right? We wouldn't just do this if we wanted to talk to ourselves for a couple hours every couple weeks, but
Yeah, then we could just get in a Discord and not record at all.
exactly.
All right, so that's going to do it for episode 6 here. Stay tuned for episode 7 in 2 weeks when we talk about, among other Pokemon, Squirtle, which is a fun one. But until that time, we will see you next time.
Squirtle Squad is coming, guys. See you later.
Squirtle Squad! Squirtle.